My name is Mia Thornton, and I am 28 years old. Tonight is supposed to be a celebration, a glittering, joyous event marking my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, a milestone in a life that outwardly seems perfect, elegant, enviable. The kind of celebration people post on social media, tagged in carefully chosen photos, likes accumulating like trophies of family success. But in reality, the air in the cafe is heavy with tension that only I can feel. A weight pressing against my chest, a tension I have learned to sense from the subtle movements and unspoken messages of the people around me. I sit at the long table, the polished mahogany reflecting the soft glow of the fairy lights strung across the ceiling. Glasses are arranged neatly, silverware gleaming under the warm lights, plates stacked as if nothing could ever be out of place. The floral arrangements smell faintly of roses and lilac, carefully selected for the occasion, a perfume of sophistication masking the artificiality beneath. Guests chatter politely, laughter filling the room at the right moments. Rehearsed smiles curling on the lips of those who have been trained to appear as though everything is perfect. But I see through it. I always do. My mother glances at me from across the table. Her eyes are sharp, calculating, the faint curl of her lips betraying a barely restrained disdain. She does not greet me. She does not smile. She does not acknowledge me with the warmth she grants my siblings. She is aware of my presence only insofar as it exists to measure and evaluate me, to critique my posture, my expression, the way my hair falls across my shoulders. And then, in a voice so crisp and cold it cuts through the low hum of conversation, she says the words I have heard her think for years but never dared to articulate aloud. We wish you were never born. The room stops. Glasses hover mid-air, forks frozen halfway to smiling mouths. Somewhere, the band continues to play a cheerful tune, oblivious to the shock rippling through the air. But my chest tightens. My heart beats in a rhythm that feels entirely foreign, a drum of disbelief and a surge of a strange, dark clarity. I do not cry. I do not flinch. I do not beg. My hands remain still, resting on the edge of the table as though they belong to someone else entirely. I push my chair back slowly, deliberately, letting the legs scrape softly against the floor, the sound slicing through the stunned silence. Every eye in the room seems to find me at once. I smooth the front of my dress, a gesture of composure, of control, and I stand taller than I have ever stood in my family. This is the moment I have been waiting for without knowing it, the moment to assert my existence in a room where I have always felt invisible. Then I'll disappear, I say calmly, letting the words hang in the air like a verdict. The color drains from my mother's face. I lean in just enough so that the microphone resting near the table can catch my voice. Not loud, not aggressive, but precise, deliberate. Every guest, every neighbor, every colleague, every distant relative hears me. Watch closely, I say. My tone razor-sharp but steady. Tonight you're going to remember me. I turn and walk away, each step measured, each breath a declaration of independence. Behind me, voices rise, someone calls my name. A chair scrapes across the floor. My father mutters under his breath. But I do not look back. My phone is already in my hand, thumb hovering over a scheduled post, drafts, and a video I have spent weeks editing, carefully crafting. I slip the phone back into my clutch and step out into the night. 30 minutes later, the chaos begins. The party that was meant to celebrate perfection descends into panic. My mother's cruel words set the stage. But what follows is entirely of my own design. Hours earlier, I had been standing behind the dessert table, adjusting the tiered cake with a hand that trembled ever so slightly, an imperceptible sign of anticipation rather than fear. My parents were in front of the camera, posing like the polished, enviable couple for photos that would later adorn social media. The cafe was crowded, every table occupied by people who had long been trained to admire my siblings, to respect my father's achievements, to celebrate my mother's perfection. No one had asked me how my art was progressing. No one cared about my portfolio, my exhibitions, my years spent cultivating a voice that had always been dismissed as a hobby, a pastime too trivial to merit acknowledgement. I remember noticing the Subtle cues of favoritism, the way my father's arm rested protectively over Ryan, his pride radiating with each story of surgical success. The way my mother's eyes followed Emily, lips curving as she praised her daughter's accomplishments in law school. And then there was me, a shadow, a background figure whose existence was tolerated only because I could be molded to serve their image. Weeks before, I discovered the truth. A folder, half open on the dining table, labeled with my name. Mia Thornton College Fund. I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity mixed with dread compelled me. My college fund empty. Every penny transferred, dispersed, used to cover Ryan's loan consolidations and Emily's expenses. A note in my mother's handwriting scrawled across one page, better to invest in real futures. I remember the sharp pang in my chest, the sudden burning realization that I had been written out of my own life. My existence reduced to decoration, an afterthought. Something within me snapped. Something else awakened. I began to notice everything I had been conditioned to ignore, the way introductions favored my siblings, the way my successes were minimized or dismissed, the quiet jokes at my expense, the sighs of frustration when I dared to pursue my art. And I began recording. Voice memos, snippets of conversation, fragments of cruelty and disregard, captured in secrecy, preserved for the moment they would matter. Tonight, I thought, everything changes. When asked to help with the anniversary slideshow, I sighed yes. I smiled and nodded, keeping my tone neutral, keeping my intentions invisible. The first half of the slideshow would be sentimental, perfect, expected photos of my parents' wedding day. Vacation pictures, smiling faces, the illusion of harmony. The second half, the real story, was already crafted in my mind. It contained the audio of my parents' dismissive remarks, the recordings of my siblings mocking my work, and the visual evidence of the fund that had been stolen. My art, previously rejected, would become a weapon, a narrative told in color, texture, and truth. I checked the projector, tested the speakers, verified the file playback, all under the guise of being a helpful daughter. No one suspected that. Beneath the surface, a meticulous plan was unfolding, every detail precise, every contingency accounted for. The power of visibility had become my instrument. The guests began to arrive. I floated among them, polite smiles and soft nods, carefully ignored. A ghost in my own story until the moment I chose to reveal myself. My mother whispered, sharp and clipped, "No drama, Mia. Promise me." I smiled faintly, whispering back, "No drama." Inwardly, I laughed at the irony. No drama. Indeed, the truth was the most dramatic thing they had ever witnessed. Dinner passed in a blur of small talk and clinking silverware. Speeches were delivered. Toasts were made. Applause rang out. And then it was my mother's turn, standing radiant under the lights, claiming the adoration of the room. "We are so blessed," she said, voice trembling theatrically. "Our children have made us proud." Her gaze swept the room, lingering over me only as if I were a chair, invisible and unworthy. "Some of them," she added lightly, prompting polite laughter. I remained seated. I already knew what was coming, when the words came, sharp as broken glass. I felt the familiar coldness, the familiar clarity. "Sometimes I truly wish you were never born." The microphone caught every syllable. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. And then I moved. Chair scraping the floor, standing taller than I had ever dared, voice steady. "Then I'll disappear." I turned, walked away, and left a room I had once been forced to occupy as a ghost. The carefully curated perfection of my family's life began to unravel behind me. 30 minutes later, the world would witness my story, meticulously planned, artfully exposed, undeniable. 30 minutes before my mother uttered those devastating words. I was standing behind the dessert table, pretending to adjust the tiered cake, pretending to be small, unnoticed, harmless. Every motion, every gesture carefully choreographed to be invisible. The cameras flashed, capturing my parents posing like the perfect couple in a lifestyle magazine spread. Their smiles were bright, flawless, curated. The warm light from the stringed bulbs bathed the room in a nostalgic golden hue. A deceptive comfort that contrasted sharply with the tension bubbling beneath the surface. The cafe was packed. Relatives, neighbors, my father's business partners, all dressed to impress, all smiling, all clapping, all pre-trained to admire my siblings and overlook me. I drifted among them, a shadow in the foreground, greeting politely, nodding, laughing softly when necessary. Ryan, my older brother, held court near the bar, recounting some surgical triumph. His voice was confident, commanding attention. People hung on his every word. Heads tilted toward him, mouths smiling, eyes shining with admiration. Emily, my younger sister, surrounded by a cluster of curious guests, laughed lightly at their questions about law school and internships. Her face radiated charm. Her laughter drew others in like sunlight. No one asked me about my art. They never did. My work, my years of dedication, my creations all invisible to their eyes. I had once told myself it was just harmless favoritism, that my parents simply loved Ryan and Emily more, that it wasn't personal, that I should be content with the small glimpses of recognition I occasionally received. But 3 weeks ago, everything changed. I had gone to my parents' house to drop off a few sample designs for the anniversary invitations, as I had been asked. My mother had left a folder on the dining table, half open, as if abandoned mid-thought. My eyes fell on the label, Mia Thornton College Fund. My stomach tightened, a knot forming so dense it felt physical. I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have touched what wasn't mine to see, but I did. And what I saw made my blood run cold. The fund was empty. Not a single dollar left for my tuition, for my future, for the dreams I had silently nurtured while my parents lauded my siblings' successes. Every penny had been transferred elsewhere, broken into chunks, sent to cover Ryan's loan consolidation and Emily's expenses. My mother's handwriting scrawled across one of the statements read, "Better to invest in the real futures." In that moment, something inside me shattered, and at the same time, something awakened. I began to notice everything I had been conditioned to ignore, the way my parents introduced us to others, first Ryan, then Emily, and finally, if they remembered, "This is Mia, she draws." The way my mother rolled her eyes when I mentioned a gallery. The way my father changed the topic whenever I spoke. The sarcastic chuckles, the whispers behind closed doors, the labels, practice child, dead weight, invisible decoration. I started recording. Every whisper, every cruel remark, every dismissive comment became ammunition for the plan I hadn't yet fully formulated but had begun constructing in my mind. Voice memos on my phone, captured as I lingered near doors in the hallways, just outside rooms. My mother sighing, "If we hadn't had her, we could have retired by now." My father muttering, "At least the other two turned out right." My siblings' casual cutting remarks, "She'd be back living at home within a year." Or Mia is just dead weight. Every recording was a fragment of the truth. A shard of reality that contradicted the facade of the perfect family my parents had worked so hard to cultivate. And I knew, deep down, that the night of the anniversary was going to be my stage. When my mother asked me to help with the slideshow, I smiled. "Yes, of course, I can do that," I said, hiding the storm brewing beneath the surface. She barely glanced up from her laptop, disinterested. "Fine," she said. "Just don't make it too weird. People want something classic." Classic. The word rang in my ears, a challenge. I would make something classic on the surface, and beneath it, the truth, exposed for all to see. I collected every old photograph my parents had proudly displayed the wedding day. Newborn Ryan, newborn Emily, the awkward, forgotten images of me. I scanned them, sorted them, and created a heartwarming opening sequence. The perfect family, perfect love, perfect expectation. Then I created a second folder. I named it Truth. It contained the audio recordings I had made over weeks. The voices of my parents layered with images of stolen college funds, my artwork dismissed and ridiculed. I combined these elements into a video sequence that would expose them in their own words, in their own actions. The plan was meticulous, precise, and irreversible. The cafe had a projector and a sound system. And my friend Jess, the only person who knew the full plan, helped coordinate the logistics. The tribute video would be played after the speeches, when attention was highest, ensuring maximum impact. I exported the file with a harmless name, anniversary_final.mp4, loaded backups on multiple devices, and even scheduled a social media post to go live 30 minutes after I left the party. I acted the part of the harmless, invisible daughter floating through the room with a tray of champagne flutes, smiling politely at guests who would never truly see me. My mother whispered at me, sharp and clipped, "No drama, Mia. Promise me." I smiled faintly. "No drama," I whispered back. Inside, I laughed quietly. The true drama had been meticulously planned. Dinner passed. Speeches were delivered. Ryan's tales of sacrifice. Emily's rehearsed praise of our parents. Polite applause. My mother's final speech. "We are so blessed. Our children have made us proud." Her gaze swept the room, sliding over me like I wasn't even there. Then it came. The words that would set everything into motion. "Sometimes I truly wish you were never born." I did not flinch. I did not cry. I did not beg. I pushed my chair back, stood tall, and spoke deliberately. "Then I'll disappear." The plan was set in motion. Jess, waiting near the projector, was ready. My phone, timed and scheduled, was ready. The first half of the slideshow would lull them into comfort. The second half would expose the truth. The perfect facade would shatter in real time. I stepped out of the room, into the cool night air, heart steady, breath controlled. The stage had been set, the trap laid with precision. 30 minutes later, their world would tilt, their lives unravel, and I would finally exist in the way I had always deserved. The party's energy was intoxicating, yet I moved through it like a ghost, unnoticed, invisible. Every guest smiled, laughed, and clinked glasses, completely unaware that tonight, I was not the same girl they had overlooked for years. Ryan held court near the bar, regaling colleagues with stories of surgeries only he could pull off, drawing admiration. Emily's charm radiated effortlessly, her laughter capturing everyone's attention. And me? I was the invisible one, the one dismissed, ignored, and belittled. But tonight, that would change. The first act of the evening unfolded exactly as planned. The celebration of 40 years of love, a picture-perfect family, complete with music, laughter, and polished speeches. My mother glided across the room, radiating charm, keeping the spotlight away from me. My father conversed with business partners, projecting calm control. Everything was ordinary, harmonious, and perfectly deceptive, the exact illusion I needed. For the reveal. I lingered near the kitchen, glancing through the half-open door, observing the interactions. Every smile, every polite nod, every toast was a reminder of the contrast between appearance and truth. I had prepared for this moment for weeks. Every audio snippet, every photograph, every financial record had been meticulously collected and hidden in plain sight. The first half of the slideshow would lull everyone into comfort, setting the stage for the second half, the moment that would expose the hidden truths. I checked my watch. 30 minutes remained until my mother's words would ignite the evening, words she didn't even realize would serve as the catalyst for their reckoning. Jess stood by the projector, a silent accomplice, her eyes on mine, waiting for the signal. Every detail had been coordinated: timing, presentation, audio, visuals. The room was unaware of the storm about to break. Dinner passed in polite conversation. Speeches were delivered and applause filled the room. Ryan's story of sacrifice and family pride. Emily's carefully rehearsed speech about parental guidance and success. Polite applause, nods, and even a few tears. And through it all, my mother's eyes flickered briefly to me before returning. To the audience, unaware that I had been silently plotting, observing, and preparing for the ultimate revelation. When the first half of the slideshow played, soft piano and smiling family photographs carried the illusion of perfect love. Guests nodded, laughed, and relaxed, unaware that the next sequence would shatter the illusion. The second half, muted during test runs, contained the truth. Audio recordings of my mother's sighs, my father's dismissive mutters, Ryan's casual mockery, Emily's cold comments. Each layer was carefully cinced with visuals, bank statements highlighting my empty college fund, paintings they had dismissed, and photographs showing my erasure from family memories. Asterisk gasps and murmurs spread through the room. My mother's composure faltered, my father's face flushed, Ryan's attempts at damage control faltered. Emily's laughter faded into nervous tension. Every reaction confirmed the precision of my planning. The invisible daughter had become the orchestrator of a public reckoning. Asterisk guests began recording and sharing clips on their phones, posting snippets online. The carefully curated celebration transformed into a spectacle of exposure. 30 minutes later, the social media post went live. Views climbed rapidly, shares multiplied, and comments flooded in from strangers, friends, and acquaintances alike. People recognized the injustice I had endured, resonated with my experience, and shared the narrative widely. Asterisk I stayed outside for a few moments, watching the chaos unfold through the glass. Jess gave me a subtle nod from inside, a silent confirmation that everything had gone according to plan. My mother attempted to regain control, claiming the video was edited or fake, but the evidence, audio, visuals, and documentation was irrefutable. My father tried to interject, to explain, to justify, but the truth could no longer be hidden. Asterisk Ryan and Emily struggled to maintain composure. Ryan's authoritative tone cracked. Emily's charm faded. Every gesture of control was ineffective against the precision of my evidence and planning. The room's reaction: shock, disbelief, whispered accusations, and viral sharing confirmed the power of visibility and truth. Asterisk I remained calm, observing every reaction, every whisper, every stunned silence. This was not about revenge in its purest vengeful sense. It was about reclaiming my narrative, asserting visibility, and presenting irrefutable truth. Every audio clip, every photograph, every record reflected years of dismissal, of invisibility, of conditional love. And now, for the first time, the world would see it too. Asterisk as the chaos reached its peak, I allowed myself a small, quiet smile. This was precision, preparation, and timing manifest. The invisible daughter had become the orchestrator of truth, transforming years of erasure into undeniable visibility. 30 minutes after the first reveal, the party had ceased being a celebration and had become a public reckoning, a testament to the power of preparation, documentation, and courage. Asterisk for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as an afterthought. Not as a shadow, but as a force that could no longer be ignored. The storm I had orchestrated was not reckless. It was calculated, undeniable, and transformative. I had turned invisibility into presence, erasure into acknowledgement, and dismissal into revelation. The world now bore witness to what had long been hidden. Asterisk, and in that clarity I found empowerment. This was not the end of the story, but the moment where my voice, previously silenced, had emerged, undeniable, visible, and unstoppable. The shockwaves of the slideshow rippled through the room, leaving my mother's eyes wide and frantic as she searched helplessly for control. My father's usual calm replaced by tense rigidity, and Ryan and Emily stumbling to maintain the illusion of composure as their carefully constructed facade crumbled around them. Guests whispered and gawked, pulling out phones to record every moment, capturing the audio of my mother's dismissive remarks, my father's casual grumblings, Ryan's mocking laughter, and Emily's cold jabs, paired with bank statements highlighting the empty college fund, photographs that erased me from family memories, and paintings they had derided as worthless. The first half of the slideshow had lulled everyone into comfort, but the second half revealed the truth, leaving no space for denial or excuse. I watched from the sidelines, calm and deliberate, my presence undeniable as the invisible child. I had once been transformed into the orchestrator of their public reckoning. Every gasp, every uneasy glance, and every whispered conversation reinforcing the power of preparation and timing. 30 minutes later, the social media post I had queued went live, and within moments, the world began to see what my family had tried to hide. Messages flooded in from strangers resonating with my experience, validating the years of invisibility and conditional love. While my mother attempted to regain control, claiming the video was fake, my father tried to justify, Ryan tried to calm the witnesses, and Emily stammered in disbelief. all futile against the evidence meticulously collected. Over weeks, the audio, photographs, and documents leaving them exposed to friends, colleagues, and strangers alike. The cafe became a stage for revelation, where polite smiles dissolved into gasps and awkward murmurs. The celebration of 40 years of perfection transformed into a public spectacle of accountability, a testament to the cost of favoritism and dismissal. I remained outside, observing the chaos, feeling a mix of satisfaction and calm resolve, knowing that my years of being overlooked, dismissed, and erased had culminated in a moment of undeniable visibility. Every guest's reaction, every recording, every social media share amplified the impact of my actions while inside. My parents scrambled to salvage control, but it was too late. The truth had been delivered, measured, and made public. With each passing minute, their reputations, carefully maintained for decades, began to fracture, the viral spread of the slideshow turning a private family betrayal into a public reckoning. While I stood apart, witnessing the transformation from powerless child to empowered architect of truth. As the hours passed, my phone buzzed with notifications, likes, shares, comments, emails, all affirming that the narrative I had been denied for years was finally visible to the world, and I felt the weight of my preparation give way to a quiet triumph. My parents, who had once dictated my value through dismissive remarks, had no recourse. Their authority was gone, replaced by public awareness and undeniable proof of their favoritism and neglect. They called, texted, pleaded, demanded explanations, but I no longer existed for them as a shadow to be managed. I existed as a force they could no longer ignore. My voice amplified, my story acknowledged, and the invisibility that had defined my childhood replaced by presence, power, and visibility. Outside the cafe, I lingered briefly, watching guests whisper and share, their phones capturing the raw reality of what had been hidden, and I felt a sense of calm and clarity, knowing the meticulous orchestration of weeks of planning had achieved its purpose, to turn years of erasure and dismissal into undeniable, visible truth. The aftermath was immediate and intense. Conversations erupted among guests. Social media accounts lit up and news outlets began to report on the incident, framing it as the anniversary massacre where the image of the perfect family had been publicly dismantled, every act of favoritism, every dismissal, and every hidden manipulation exposed for the world to see. As the evening waned, my parents retreated into private corners, their attempts at damage control futile, their carefully maintained personas shattered, while I, for the first time, experienced the full weight of empowerment, the realization that my life, my voice, and my story could no longer be controlled by the very people who had tried to erase me. I returned to my apartment later that night, reflecting on the events, reading messages of support and understanding from strangers who related to the pain of invisibility and felt a profound sense of validation and clarity. The gallery calls, the professional recognition, and the social acknowledgement were all proof that my years of struggle had culminated in an outcome that was not only just but transformative, allowing me to reclaim my narrative fully, assert my presence, and step into a future defined not by their limitations but by my own vision. In the days that followed, the fallout continued. My parents struggled with the social consequences of exposure. Ryan and Emily faced professional and personal scrutiny, and I navigated the delicate balance of witnessing the destruction of the false perfection I had grown up under while embracing the empowerment and visibility I had earned. Each phone call, each email, and each social media notification served as a reminder that truth, preparation, and courage could dismantle even the most carefully curated facades, and that the child who had once been silenced was now the author of her own story, visible, heard, and unstoppable. By the opening of my gallery months later, the transformation was complete. My artwork, inspired by every act of dismissal, erasure, and conditional love, stood on walls where strangers and supporters alike could witness the culmination of my journey, a journey from invisibility to presence, from silence to voice, and from pain to empowerment, with the title of the central piece, "We Wish You Were Never Born," serving as both a literal and symbolic marker of the struggle, the revelation, and the victory that had defined this chapter of my life. And as I stood among guests watching their reactions, I understood something I had long been denied, that truth, carefully prepared and courageously delivered, had the power not only to expose but to transform, to elevate the overlooked into the seen, and to take the pain of invisibility and convert it into a legacy of undeniable presence, voice, and recognition for all the world to witness.